We are live. It's the Sunday morning rants with Tijo. We're going to be going over everything random and rant worthy this morning. A lot of the times that's actually questions from you guys. We're in a really interesting part of the market. We're right near the top of where we assumed B wave would be long before we broke down, or I guess long before we started this uptrend. So it's very exciting to see. But you also get that real FOMO-like feeling. Oh no, did we miss the bottom? Is this it? And that's actually quite common. I think that feeling itself is a reminder that we're probably near a top, that over exuberant behavior, oh, it's just going to keep going. $50,000 Bitcoin is right around the corner. And I actually probably agree with that. Closer to the end of 2019 into the beginning of 2020 is when I suspect we'll see a return to the bull market. So a big question of this comes to be, is Bitcoin giving us one of the ultimate bull traps here, kicking itself into the $6,000, $6,200 area, maybe even break 6,500, because this is an extremely exuberant bunch. The people that are invested into Bitcoin right now are not your average, and they're not, let's say, they're not like a regulated investor, right? So they're not people that know how to invest necessarily. I mean, we could include myself. This is relatively new. I mean, I've only been trading since 2015, 2016. So, only the first few years of something, you don't actually get all that good. Like, for instance, if you were to pick up a guitar right now and you've never played before, and you start playing, 4 years from now, you will be significantly better than you are today. But where will you be 4 years from now is you're not going to be like the best guitar player. Right now, if you shove 4 hours a day of study and 4 hours in the evening of just thinking about what you're doing, you can become very good quite quickly. But you'll always be an amateur until you get to the higher time frames, right? The higher time frames are closer to the 10-year mark. So I've been trading for 5 or 6 years. I've had my hands in different markets, whether it's gold or silver, buying puts and options and trading securities. This is... you get accustomed to certain types of behavior in the market. Now, one of the things that we've always kind of been postulating about Bitcoin is whether or not what we're tracking is the price movement of an information technology, which is what Bitcoin is, or are we tracking the price movement of something that's like a security or something that's like a commodity or like a currency? And that's really one of the biggest questions right now is this price movement going to start to reflect the growth of information technology, or is it going to continue down the price sentiment? Now, because it is a price action information technology, it will probably follow the price sentiment, which means it's likely to follow the same behavior that all the emotional trends follow. And that's kind of a difficult one to really take in. Even myself, meditating about the idea, the fact that evaluation of something is nothing but two people's conscious behavior to decide that something has that value is very difficult to understand the markets that way, right? Because all of a sudden, if everyone decided that they were going to sell their Bitcoin only for $1 million, then that is what would happen. That's what the markets would lean into, because it is a price sentiment based off the emotions of the people that originally bought Bitcoin back in the day, from those hundreds of wallets that still have 50,000 plus Bitcoin sitting in them. We haven't seen those move, and just before November they moved before, right? They came online, and that's what was part of the price drop, is they actually hit public exchanges because they didn't care to wait or sell them on OTC and have chunks spitting out of them. They just wanted it gone fast, and the price dropped down. Now it comes to the same sentiment, is who are these people that own these 100 wallets that have 50,000 plus Bitcoin, because that's enough to move the market, significantly so. If they were to start to liquidate those prices, they would decide what the market price is at, right? Currently, the hodlers and even the people that are accumulating, like a Grayscale, I'm not exactly sure how many Bitcoins Grayscale has. It's fairly large. Actually, let's type that in. How many Bitcoin does Grayscale have? Grayscale Bitcoin Trust Investment. Let's see if they actually tell us. So this is kind of the Grayscale GBTC is the ETF version of the Bitcoin price action. Let's see, does it tell us how many Bitcoins that they have? It does not. So I'm going to show you what I'm looking at here. I'm just actually currently on Grayscale's website. I'm trying to find out if they have if they actually have a report on. No, they don't. They don't. At least they don't make it noticeable. Anyways, the point of this is, I'm not sure how many tokens Grayscale has, but they're effectively some of the people that would control the market price if they were to decide to ditch it. Now, I don't think that's Grayscale because they're rather new to the market. This is one of the first times we've seen, let's go back to this close stupid Facebook here. This is one of the first times we've seen where retail investors were actually some of the last to the show. Normally investing in something like Facebook, you have all of your seed round investors that get in way before everyone, and the hyped up IPO is usually kind of a failure because you don't know what's going to happen, and when you hit the public sentiment, it can switch on a dime. It can turn around very, very quickly because public sentiment again takes over, and that really brings us down to the emotional understanding of what's taking place, because this is an emotional game. The ability to have value outside of survival is a fucking privilege that we have right now. So anyways, I don't want to rant too long before I dive in and start looking at the charts here a little bit. We saw, again, so here we see that the price drop right here. This was from the Bitfinex news, or this happened right around the time of Bitfinex news. It was hand in hand, and now we see a very strong support and resistance layer right around the $5,800 mark. I mean, if you bring it a little bit lower, you can see that we've actually hit it 3 times at least on big spikes at around 50. Yeah, this one's at 57.99, right? Almost exactly 5,800. So we've hit this on the 5-minute twice. Now, if we scroll out on the hour, we see something very similar. Aside from this one is only as a wick now, we'd actually cut that wick off. It's still at 5,800. We've hit this top around 3 times at 5,800. So we're showing there's a lot of resistance at that area. And we knew that. We've actually done that on all the original areas that we had hypothesized before we got here, which is the $5,200 mark, which actually ended up being closer to 5,150 being the strong area of support and resistance right through here. The $5,400 mark, which we saw right around here, bang, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We see again that massive area of resistance. Again at 5,600, which we actually broke through very quickly. We held that one quite predominantly before the drop to the Bitfinex news, and now 5,800. So 5,800 actually I thought would go to 5,900 a little more quickly. We had 52, 54, 56, 59, and 6,200 as our range of possibilities coming out of this B wave. Now, a big part of the question that lingers in my mind for the potentiality of saying, let's go bullish for a moment and see what Tijo thinks if I'm to suggest that we're bullish. And just so everyone knows, I've held my original Bitcoin for quite a long time. I do like to play around in the trading game because it allows me to A, learn, and B, acquire more without actually exiting the crypto space to say buy another asset and then turn that asset into more liquidity and then buy more Bitcoin. If I leave it in the crypto space and trade in the crypto space, I don't actually exit that market. So the whole time I have exposure, even though I may not be sitting in Bitcoin particularly, at least I have exposure in the general market's assets, where I leave my hodl, we'll call it the hodl position, because I don't really care about what I do with that. That just stays where it is. Now the trading position here, I actually am quite a bit more fluid and liquid with, because my main goal here is to learn as much as possible and again multiply the Bitcoin that's in that trading or stacking account, whatever like new term you want to give it. So if we go back out to the hourly, let's go to the daily. Actually, we'll look at days 1, 2, and 3. So the case for bullish entry into Bitcoin actually comes back to the sentiment of what I was speaking about when taking a look at Bitcoin as information technology, but also against the S&P 500 and the dollar. So the S&P 500, before we broke into new all-time highs, somewhere back here in the middle of July 2018, I remember saying, and for those of you that are with us for quite a long time, you'll know this, that we said we were interested that the stock market would just keep going up and up and up, and gold would actually go down. And we made this sentiment, and we got a lot of flack from people, well, because obviously gold has a long-term history. Why can't I find GLD on the markets here? Anyways, I forget what the gold ticker is. I thought it was GLD. Oh, I'm only in cryptocurrency, that's why. Okay, there's gold. Okay, so here's gold at the 1278 line. It's been butting up against that area for quite some time. Oh, look, here's the original chart that we had. We couldn't break out past the 786. Again, I remember saying A lot of like that this data looked weak for gold, and that the rising stock market and the rising dollar, in my mind, wasn't a great sentiment for gold. So we actually see a wedge here forming. Boom. So keep an eye on gold now a little bit more specifically, because the whole entire market sentiment is interrelated, right? Gold is a multi-trillion-dollar market. It's important to keep an eye on that. But what I was really interested in was the movement of Bitcoin, the dollar, and the stock market. Oh Jesus, here we go. Okay, good. I'm looking at gold. Okay, I wanted to know we're looking at the S&P 500. I apologize that I wasn't sharing my screen there. Thank you guys for giving me the heads up. I should actually probably take a look at the chat a little more frequently. I need a second screen open. I'm gonna find out how I can need to buy a second screen or something so I can actually see what everyone's saying as I'm ranting along here in the background. But one of my concerns is that the S&P 500 would continue to rise under the basically the degradation of the dollar. But now we see the dollar has actually gone, it broke above the triangle that it had been in and started to break above that line. Now it hadn't been able to close the weekly, above that, right? As you see, the moving averages actually are just right on that line there. We want to break above that with volume on the weekly, I think. And that's going to determine probably a run to around the 103 mark for the dollar. Now, I originally thought that this would be bearish for Bitcoin. But what I'm starting to think is that because there's so much momentum scared in every ecosystem, they're running to the dollar, they're running to the S&P 500, and I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see again, lowered or negative interest rates and potentially even quantitative easing hit the table. And this is actually a case for bullish Bitcoin, because that means there'd be a bunch of extra paper money sloshing around in the system. And that's why I thought that the S&P 500 would continue to rise, is that you have a degradation in the dollar and more of it being printed, which would give the appearance of the rising stock market. And I postulate that the reason this happens is because if we can keep the sentiments of the markets at large in an upward direction, that most people wouldn't notice that there's anything wrong. And we could probably transit over the next 2 to 3 years into a new system without having the big crash that's probably necessary. Nobody wants that big crash, but that's what would be ultimately bullish for Bitcoin. The case for bullish Bitcoin at 100,000, $1 million is going to be the total degradation of the US dollar. It's not on the back of a strengthening dollar and a strengthening stock market, because the stock market is doing quite well. It's actually bringing large percentage gains. If you look at the S&P 500 from that little spike that we had, right? What's this percentage gain? This is a 25-30% gain in the S&P 500 in what's the last 130 days. No, that's actually, wow, that's a long time. Geez, time just flies by. Anyways, the point of this is it's very important to keep an eye on the entire general market sentiments. And I don't think that there's been a decoupling of Bitcoin's price action to everything else. I think that sentiment in itself is the same privilege, regardless of what commodity or what instrument we're looking at, whether it's a cryptocurrency or not. I think they're all interrelated to human consciousness. Human consciousness is perceiving value based off what people's like survival, mortality rates are, what's going on. Can they afford food? Can they afford housing? These kinds of things, right? This makes a big difference in how people feel. Do they feel good about their markets or safe? So diving back into Bitcoin here, because this is our main, the main importance of what we chart. I'm not actually trading in the stock market anymore. I got out of it. I left everything in 2016. I thought we were done there, but luckily I entered everything into Bitcoin, so it was a great move, even though we did see another 20 to 30% move upwards in the S&P 500 after I exited the market. Anyways, the point of this is I still think there's room to bring us up to 6,200. Again, that's the top of the massive amount of support. You can also see this is where our moving average Madrid range is cut down to. Now, a lot of the speculation, I think, is going to bring us down back to I think this is what happens. We come down to at least the $3,500 mark. Now, the original lines I drew here for our ABC corrective was like this. I drew it to 5,800, 5,900, and then came back down with the C. Now, my original C wave was supposed to bring us even lower, a D and then an E. Now, the problem here is if the dollar's degrading, but it's going up, and the stock market's degrading, and it's going up, and then we've entered into total la-la land. So that might mean that we see this spike to 6,200, because that represents more la-la land to me, before coming back down and testing 3,800 again, and then continue to move on into the bull market. And this would represent pretty much exactly what happened in 2013, 2012 market. If I actually scroll over here, I had one of our bear members chart. This is not the chart I wanted to use. Where was it? I had an overlay of both of the markets. Damn, I don't have it saved. Anyways, the point of this is, if you overlay both of these, and I'm sure many of you guys have seen these charts before, but they're quite similar in their patterns. Now, that's not to say that the past repeats itself, but emotional sentiment is almost always the same, regardless of if it's Bitcoin or not. We are charting emotional sentiment off price range. Now, that's a hugely important part to remember, unless the only other argument for this case, and this would be the extremely bullish sentiment, is if we all of a sudden do break into the S-wave curves that you see from adoption of information technology. Curve. Let's say curve. Maybe that will help. Yeah, these are generally called S curves. Let's see if we have a good one here. Yeah, so here's where we might be, right? We might be right in the middle of the market adoption, coming back off this side. Now, if we see S-curve adoption, here's a good one too. Here's a drawing for different historical products and technological speed, the adoption speed. Right now, the adoption speed actually might be more intrinsically related to price than the price itself, but we are still actioning price movement, which makes it one of these difficult sentiments to really try to understand. So here you see S-curve adoption on things like landlines, dishwashers, central heating, washing machine. Now, we're not charting the price of these in any way, shape, or form. We're actually charting the adoption rates and the adoption speeds at which these things took off. So here you have, we're charting the washing machine, right? It's first introduced in 1930, had a big spike up to 1940, dropped back out into 1950, the whole home thing that was taking off, and then into the 1980s as people started to spend more time at work, and then it kind of trilled off into 2014, where it's not really being adopted anymore, especially not at a rapid pace. Now, I've seen one of these here drawn with Bitcoin. So let's look. Here's another great chart. This one actually is probably a bit more relevant. Look at podcasting here from early 2000 into 2016, where we are right now. Its adoption curve shot up very, very quickly. So a big part of the question, and one of the things that would lead me into just entering a bull market right now, would be, are we now charting the speed of adoption instead of emotional price sentiment? Now, normally these two aren't so intrinsically linked, right? The adoption of podcasting isn't intrinsically linked to the price of a podcast itself, right? All we're looking at here is the adoption of technology. And the adoption of technology that's where you start to see exponential growth curves. And that's what Bitcoin has shown in a lot of its adoption rate as well, that this is an information technology. Again, the big question in my mind is, do we start to see a more viable relationship between the adoption speed and the price itself? And that would lead me to believe that we entered a bullish market in 2017, and it will never stop. So 2017 or mid 2017, right, when Bitcoin is around $400 in March 2017-ish. So we started a bull market in 2017. It never really stopped. Now, it's only when you get to the closer time frames that obviously we've been actually in a bear market now since, at least for this particular state of conjecture, since December of 2017, right at around the top. It doesn't really matter the price fluctuation at this point to me. We can chart it anyways. So from the top to where we are now is 470%, right? So if we went from 3,000 back to 20,000, that's another 475% gain. Now, that's why these markets are so fun, but it's also why things like Ravencoin have become so tasty for us. Everyone's like, oh, you missed the Bitcoin run. It's like, yeah, no, we didn't. First off, my HODL position has never changed. I won't touch it because it doesn't mean it's just an asset in my portfolio. The same way my house is. I'm not going to sell my property. I own it outright, and I paid way less for it than we could sell it for. And not only that, I've lived here for 4 or 5 years. So if you average in the general cost factor of around $1,000 a month to rent somewhere, this place has totally paid itself off. Why would I sell it? I just keep it in the asset portfolio, because having a portfolio that's diversified in property, land, water, different cryptocurrencies, different businesses, that's how you build wealth, right? You don't build wealth just by owning Bitcoin. At least I don't feel comfortable doing that. You know, I only want to keep a certain amount of my assets in Bitcoin, because if I had everything in Bitcoin and it fluctuated that much, I'd probably end up throwing up during these bear markets. But now, because I have a diversified portfolio, this is just fun to play in. So when things like Ravencoin come along, we entered it around 400 Satoshis, right at this red mark here. We made a very clear point of it back in November. This is where we were taking our position. It went down even further. Sure, we lost another 30 to 40%. But look at this. This is a 500% gain that, for those of you that missed out on Raven, took place right then. Same thing with Engine. So this is why I like to have a trading stack, and why I don't pay attention to Bitcoin's price movement overall as like the be all end all for me, because we have massive price movements coming into this ecosystem in other areas. And it's actually more beneficial for me on the long term to play off these other side waves. But when Bitcoin starts to move, I just jump back into Bitcoin, right? So when Bitcoin started to move, I closed out all my positions in all the digital assets, right? Because I just don't want to be taken out by Bitcoin's price movement, which can jump 10 or 20% at the same time, and then leave the altcoins 20% negative of that 10% move that Bitcoin just made, which is 30%. That's huge. It's a huge part of your trading portfolio if you just sit stagnant. So the same thing, we saw something very similar with Engine, right? You take Engine from February to even its volume highs is 500%, 450% of a gain. Well, Bitcoin only did 30. Right? So this is why I want to make it clear that we're not just playing in the Bitcoin markets. The entire digital asset ecosystem is important to me, because it represents the same information technology, regardless of if it's Bitcoin or not. If you're not taking value, like these 400, 500% gains, you're just leaving value on the table, and that's a pretty schmuck thing to do. I mean, you could count. I mean, hold on. Let's not call anyone a schmuck. You could call it playing it safe. Bitcoin, in my cognitive assumption here, is the safe asset to be in, because I believe it's won its position already. I believe it's earned that position, and it's the reason why I just don't touch my HODL position at all. It's like, cool, leave it in the backdrop, continue to move on, continue to add more assets, right? Continue to build more businesses and grow those businesses, because those businesses do better. Like my ginger tonic company has been running for 5 years now, right? It does great for me. And if we can scale it to national, 6 or 7 figures a year easily in profit, right? Just from a drink. People don't often recognize how valuable building a company can be is in comparison with, just throwing money into Bitcoin and waiting. Well, if you build a company in Costa Rica and it takes 5 years, you might be able to bring in a 10,000% gain and outpace Bitcoin. Right? Business can do that. Business can outpace Bitcoin if you know what you're doing. It doesn't always mean that you'll know what you're doing and you can find a successful market where you can build 1,000% gains off your entry points. But there are businesses that do that. SEO, the SEO world for me, almost every time it's played, has brought in 1,000% gains, or 10x essentially, right? They've brought in 10x gains. For every $100 you put in, you get $1,000 back, right? It's a beautiful, beautiful game to play. And that's often business if you know what you're doing. So again, what I want to recommend here, and what I'm trying to state, because none of this is investment advice, is that a diversified portfolio will do many things for you. It adds emotional stability to what you're doing. It gives you the cognitive capability to not worry about a position for the long term. So if you take a HODL position, which is, let's say you're just like, I'm gonna buy all the Bitcoin I can today at $6,000, because I feel fairly confident that it might go to zero or it might go to $1 million. And whether I buy it at 3,000, 1,000, 6,000, it doesn't matter to me, because 5 years from now is what I'm interested in. That's fantastic. But if you put more money in than you can care to lose for those 5 years, it's going to make you sick to your stomach if Bitcoin goes from 6,000 back down to 3,000 again, or maybe even to 1,500. That's going to screw your position up, and you'll get worried and you might sell. And I mean, I listened to Tone Vays yesterday only for a few minutes, and I agree with his postulation here, which Bitcoin, over the next few months down near August will could make another interim low, test this 200-day or the 200 moving average on the weekly here, let's say 3,400. And I agree, I would rather buy at $4,000 with less down or upside risk, seeing this, or let's say it goes above the top of the recent lows at around 4,200, because then at least if you bought at 6,000 and we start to come down here, this is a more palpable position. Again, same, if we break out past 6,600, I would rather buy more at 6,600 and lose that 10 or 20%, because it's a safer bet. And for anyone that's been playing in these markets for a long time, it's about being emotionally stable, because that's when you don't do dumb things. If you start to try to chase trades, you're FOMO or fudding into positions, you're gonna continually up your portfolio, because you're gonna be like, oh my god, I gotta try to make the money back to pay for rent next month. That is when you'll lose. This game is not for people that are trying to make rent every month from what you have, because you have too much invested that's just on your daily basis. This is designed when you have extra assets, right? Like, okay, I have $1 million in my portfolio and I want to put 1% exposure, right? You're going to put $10,000 into Bitcoin, which is, you should. If you have $1 million in net worth, you should have at least 1% in there. Mine's higher than that. It's around, well, it doesn't matter. We won't talk too much about that. It doesn't matter. Let's just use that as a round portfolio, right? $1 million, you've got 10% invested, or sorry, 1% invested. That's around $10,000 from $1 million in exposure, and that's beautiful. You should have at least 1%, because this is a phenomenal asset. And we're still under the conjecture that it could go to zero. If we have some crazy thing that happens, like a meteor hits Los Angeles, nobody's going to care how much gold or Bitcoin is worth. This is value is based off outside of survival. It is a privilege to have value of something, right? Because it doesn't mean you're worried about where you're going to find food the next day, or water or shelter. We can only have the privilege of valuing something when we're not on a daily basis worried about survival. And we've seen, like in the 1930s during the Great Recession, people were more worried about survival than they were about economics, and you saw a big price plunge in absolutely every commodity and market index, because people didn't give a shit. They were worried about where they were going to find their next meal, not about investing. And that's really the key point of understanding that I want to make there, is that if we hit a point of survival, we lose the privilege to value something, and that could be massively detrimental to Bitcoin's price. That's where I would speculate we would go significantly lower. If this is the start of and this is the interim low that we saw at 3,100, I agree, we'll probably see $4,000, and that's $4,000 is a safer entry point than 32 still. So whether you lose 10% or not, it doesn't matter, because look, if you're learning how to play in this game and you know how to do it in the long term, we've seen things like Engine do its thing a few times over. Same with Raven. Like, look, if you take Engine from volume to volume, 2,000% since the beginning of 2018. So this is huge movement, right? Now, again, that's only a hodl position. We don't like to do that. We prefer something closer to swing trades. So here, even on a swing trade, if you'd entered Engine here at their interim low, that's not a price movement. Sorry, let's go like this. Still 500-600%. So you have things like Ravencoin did the same thing. You had the same thing like PHX, Phoenix Red or something. You have these big swings that come in. That are worthwhile to take advantage of. And it's not just about playing in Bitcoin for us. I mean, even in EOS versus Bitcoin, since the beginning of February, is 100% gain over Bitcoin's price movement. Now it's been dropping. Oh, geez, I keep pressing the Fibonacci. That's how much I love the Fibonacci tool, right? So from December 2018 for EOS to April, you have a 100% move against Bitcoin. And then as soon as Bitcoin started to move up, you see again around a 30% drop versus Bitcoin's price. And this is why I chart against Bitcoin, is because I'm not trying to get more dollars in my portfolio. That's why I own businesses. I own the Ginger Tonic company, because that brings in more cash. I can rent out my guest cabin for $100 a night, because that brings in more cash. I'm invested in the crypto space and swing trading in the crypto space, because that's the easiest way to acquire more Bitcoin without having to spend fiat, which means I can separate those two ideas basically internally. So that's why I'm super excited about things like Ravencoin still. Ravencoin is not done. So let's take a look at Ravencoin here, and then we'll start to dive into some of your guys' questions. Thank you all for joining us. This is the Random Rant show on Sundays. We're basically just going to shit talk for as long as we can here. Take some of your guys' questions. Lynette says hello. It's nice to see you in the chat with us, Lynette. We've been, I think because we looked at the possibility of Bitcoin going down to $1,600, we lost a lot of people that were quite supportive of the Bitcoin space because everyone wants to remain bullish. And that's the long-term scenario. The long-term scenario has never changed. But I'm not a long-term hodler aside from my core position. I love playing in this space because things like Ravencoin exist here. And Inshin, it's just so much fun. Why would you want to ignore that if you don't have to? So let's actually take a look at Ravencoin on a more succinct chart on the daily here. It'll give us quite a bit more range to play with. Boom. So let's chart from the top of the volume on the daily down to the mid-range point, which is around 375. We won't actually chart all the way to the bottom. Let's chart to where there's support. I mean, it makes more sense to me. So we've butted up right against the 382 line, which is also the top of wave 1. This would actually characterize also a wave 3, wave 4, although wave 4s are usually a bit more meandering sideways. This is still a meandering sideways. The spikes on Raven have been huge. Just this alone was a 30% spike the other day from here to here. 20% spike. There's a huge market movement just on a rebound alone. So the main question comes down to, there's a lot of support here on the volume profile as well as on the bottom of the wave 2 retracement from wave 1 at the 236 line. So I'm looking more confidently for an entry down around the around 600 satoshis. Although I'm not going to enter at that point, I'm actually going to wait to see. And you also see down here on the daily, the 200 moving average is about to break into that 600 satoshi mark as well. Now, Ravencoin, when we first entered for this first spike, for those of you that rode this with us as well, this was we can't chart it entirely because this is Binance, but this is at least a 200% move from, there was another 150, 200% move before it was listed on Binance that took place. Even just the rumors of it entering on Binance was quite huge. But the point of this is, while Bitcoin's been in downtrends, we've been able to take 400%, 500% gains multiple times by paying attention to these other smaller markets. So if you look at Ravencoin, right, let's just get a quick little asset deduction here. It's sitting around $150 million in liquidity. 169 million. And when we first entered Raven I saw about a year ago, the market cap was around 50 million, I think. Yeah, so here's the July 2018, $24 million market cap, right? So we've seen the market cap quadruple, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, it's 5, right? Another 2, 4, it's 6 times higher than it was when we started. This coin is not going anywhere. So one of the reasons why I like Raven is, okay, even if it's not a long-term absolute winner, we know that there's enough invested interest into this space to go from 20 million to 160 million in market cap, that we're going to see spikes and ranges like this quite frequently. So I've got a close eye on Raven because this thing does 5 or 10, even if it does 2 to 5x moves every time it does it, that's beautiful because Bitcoin won't keep up with that. But if Bitcoin starts to move, I just close my Raven positions and I enter back into Bitcoin because you don't want to fight the big wake mover. Anyways, it's enough of my rant today. I'll start to take a look at some of your guys' questions here. So let's do that. I'll give you my silly face for a moment while I take a look at the questions. Okay. Groova says, can you check out ADA? Yeah, okay, we'll take a look at AVA. Now, see, what Herbs doesn't understand here is that it's not another pump and dump, because if you look at the charts and you actually know how to look at the charts, the market cap has more than quadrupled in the year. There's been no dumping. The market cap has consistently grown. Now, when coins drop like that, that's actually a healthy market movement. That's normal. So I don't think that there's no pump and dump here. Pump and dump is completely different. It's when you see the loss of market cap as well. This is only gained market cap, so you're just talking shit. Doesn't make any sense. Let's take a look at ADAs, what you guys asked for. Let's go to the weekly. Maybe get a bit more of some fresh information here. Yeah, look at Cardano. So we entered Cardano originally in December 2018. It was a crazy move. I only put maybe a few grand into Cardano, and it ended up being worth like 35 grand or something ridiculous. And then I wasn't paying attention. I was traveling around doing stuff, and then it dropped down. It dropped down to here or something. I think I ended up selling around mid-range around here. April. Yeah, this is right around when I pretty much exited everything. This is when we exited Ethereum, Litecoin as well. Anyways, so Cardano has been drifting down near the bottom here and consolidating. A lot of people want to call everything a shit coin. I don't give a crap whether it's a good coin or not. It has fundamentals behind it that I can play for at least 6 to 9 months at a time. And we see consolidation on this as well. So if it's going to pump, great. I'm going to sell it at the top anyways. That's what I do with everything now. I try to sell Bitcoin when it's at the top and then rebuy back in near a bottom. Whether it's exact bottom or not, it doesn't matter because I still... Anyways, I don't want to rant too much on that particular topic. But let's zoom in a little bit more effectively on the 1, 2, and 3 day range. So on the daily here, we're hitting on the 200 moving average. We've actually closed below it, which is not a great sign, but we've butted right up against the volume profile strength area, which is right around here at around 1124 satoshis. If you move back in time too, you actually see that strength point is all the way back to, what is this, November, December of 2017. So the strength in this support point actually goes back over a year. So we probably found the bottom here. But even with Cardano, I mean, look at this price range movement you have from March, the beginning of March 2019 to the mid of April. So you have a month and a half movement to make a 65% gain versus Bitcoin. And then as soon as Bitcoin started to move, all those gains were reversed. So this is, I mean, Cardano is a prime example of why I never hodl. And whether you want to call it a pump or dump or not, you just sound ridiculous, especially if you don't realize that the market cap is consistently growing. So for instance, let's take a look at Cardano's market cap and make a judgment. So it's in the top 10 tokens, and let's take its max look at market cap. So here, Cardano is a totally different story. Cardano looks more like a pump and dump token because you have a massive move, $27 billion market cap. That's what I call irrational exuberance to the finest, right? So now down near its bottom here and consolidating around 2.5 billion, right? So you could consider Cardano at this particular moment a pump and dump because it hasn't recovered anywhere near its original market cap highs, right? Not even close. But you also see that in the price. So what we'll have to wait to see is, does Cardano basically pull back any of that market speculation that it could? And it may very well be able to do so. We don't know what these companies pull off over the next few years. That's why I've almost always ascertained that anything in the top 10 is probably a good guess, aside from Tether apparently. Monero, Dash, these can go a long ways still under the back and the weight of the evolving blockchain and Bitcoin space. So it's not to say that Cardano couldn't recover itself back to a 20 or $30 billion market cap, right? Here you have an $18 billion market cap movement on Bitcoin in the last 24 hours alone. That's beautiful. Currently sitting at 182 billion for the entire space. Now, here's the funny thing, right? You're like, okay, let's look up how much money does, let's say, I don't know, Goldman Sachs market cap. What's Goldman Sachs market cap? Oh, geez. Well, their market cap is only 0.49 billion, right? But 0.49 billion is 489 million. That's quite high still. So actually, Goldman Sachs is a shitty example. Okay, FAB market cap. Okay, whereas let's see FAB's market cap. Don't show. They're not going to show it. I believe it's around 186 billion. So basically what I'm trying to get across here is there are a bunch of other companies and businesses that have a higher market cap the entire blockchain ecosystem, which is actually a great thing because we know that we're still at the very, very, very beginning for this. Anyways, I've done enough ranting about Cardano there. I'm not particularly interested in its price yet, although the fact that it's butting up against this major support, if Bitcoin starts to do something different, that we could see a big spike and a new, again, 60% in less than a month is huge. That's before Bitcoin made its move. So if you sold at the top and then rebought back here, you're killing it. But that's usually not how it goes. If you're lucky and you're a good trader, you usually enter here and exit there, and you pull off the 30%. You're like, good, that was close enough. I caught the mid-range of the third and the beginning of the fifth wave, and that was enough for me. It's a much safer way to trade too. Anyways, the moving Madrid here is about to close into the gray, so I suspect it will probably push down a little bit lower into Cardano. Now let's take a look at a few more of your guys' thoughts and questions. I didn't screen share again. God damn it! It's like you think I would know how to do this. I'm gonna leave it on screen share all the time. Sorry guys. Okay, so here's Cardano. I can't believe I wasn't screen sharing. I'm just going to leave it on screen share the whole time from now on. That way I don't jump back and forth between the two. Solves that problem. So the Cardano price, we'll just go over that really quickly again. Grab your Fibonacci right between the volume for the daily, back up against the volume profile. We've gone all the way down to the bottom of the Fib retracement. Again, not a great sign, but you have so much volume profile support at that area. I suspect that's about where the bottom is, and you also see the weekly 200 or 200 moving average on the daily, and the weekly actually is right around the same spot. So if we go to the weekly, it's actually just a little bit lower. It's not even going to show us. Never mind. We don't have the weekly data yet, so let's look at 3-day. And not enough data on the 3-day either. Doesn't matter. On the 1 day, a 200 moving average for Cardano, we're getting close. I'm not interested in a position in Cardano yet at all. Not even, I mean, it's just not, doesn't look healthy, especially because we have so much momentum in Bitcoin. But there we see Bitcoin starting to drop below. Let's move in a little more closely. I actually sometimes like to take a look at the 1 and 5 minute chart. It's very helpful for looking at where we're finding support and resistance on a more cumulative base. Right, again here, the run up that we see, yeah, it's just losing strength, essentially. Although posting higher highs than the previous on this range, it's still in a downward position, right? You had your tops actually make a break here. It tried to break out and then broke down very, very quickly off of this this next support line. So, you know, a lot of people don't understand technical analysis. They think that it's supposed to be, oh, this is what's going to happen. That's not what it does. It actually just gives you a better assessment so that you can make those 30 to 40% gains, pull off a few 100% in Raven, exit, and then re-enter later on down the road instead of just hodling through all these massive moves. You know, I want to be active with my portfolio. It's the same way I actively play around with my house. When I'm gone, I put it up for rent. I add little bits like railings or a pool because it increases the value and the rental property value. It's consistent building of growing of your portfolio. So there's no exact way. Technical analysis just gives you a better answer than saying, oh, I'm just going to enter right now without looking at what's going on in the markets at all. It's just supposed to help you make a more educated guess on what is the best way to do it. Unless you're just a long-term hodler, sure, buy it 6,000, 10,000, 20, who gives a shit? This thing could be worth millions of dollars. Your bet is still, it could be worth zero or millions. That's been the bet with Bitcoin the whole time. So, I mean, it just depends. Are you willing to lose that much at that price? Because if you are, all the power to you. Let's take a look at some of your guys' questions. I didn't see the screen share. Show the charts, please. Show the charts. Nice. Okay. Well, we shared the charts there. I hope that helped. I can't believe I wasn't sharing it for a little while. Please. Show the charts. I'll leave that at my. Let's see. How long have we been ranting? We've been ranting for 43 minutes here. Thank you guys all for joining us. I know the channel has been all over the place. I know that's why we're always battling getting higher numbers, is because you can never really tell what we're going to get here. Sometimes it's an emotional story and I'm talking about traveling, and sometimes it's about Bitcoin, sometimes it's about buying property. The reason we like to keep it eclectic is because this is meant to be basically art for me. I do this because I love to create and share my ideas. It's not because I'm trying to make money from any of this. Although we are currently building a really great newsletter, and I'm so grateful for everyone that signed up. Grateful for all of your positive support and comments. We've sent out 3 big basically newsletter pieces, and we'll continue to keep that volume of information up for you guys. So thank you all for joining the newsletter. We're really excited to build that out. We've also decided that we're going to use all the marketing budgets from the newsletter to go help orphanages or do conservation efforts. So once every few months, we'll go make basically a contribution to the community based off the Arcane Bear community. So all of you that are private Bear members as well know that that's where we're going to spend our marketing budgets, and the rest of it goes actually into creating the content, getting editors, PDF designers, putting new stuff on the website, creating infographics. So that's where we're putting the most of it. Russ says maybe trivia. Yeah, let's do a trivia question next week. I was a little out of it this morning. I'm still trying to get back on the horse with. There's been a bunch of, so it's rainy season here right now, so we've been having to clean all the gutters and redig all the ditches and make sure all the canoas. What the hell do you call a canoa? A gutter, yeah. Make sure all the gutters are good to go. The last few weeks has basically been getting ready for rainy season, batten down the hatches, make sure everything's good to go, repaint any of the rusty stuff that might have gotten degraded over the last few months. So there's been a lot of work in the background. We've been rebuilding the greenhouse. We're going to start planting it again in the next few days. So there's a lot of just general infrastructure stuff that I like to do here. So next week we'll do a giveaway. I'll have a little bit more time next week. This week was super swamped for me because of all that work. And then basically we'll just come back to it. Raw Power, you're a foolish person for saying anything so ridiculous there. If you guys don't look, I want to share an example of something here that I think is important. There's a great sentiment around understanding the worth of having someone in a position. Now, a few years ago, the head of the Boys and Girls Club got paid $1 million, and everyone got outlashed. They're like, "Oh my God, no! You should. Why are we paying her $1 million? All the money should go to the kids." It's like, but she increased registration by 70%. She increased global revenues by almost $1.7 billion. And then when they fired her, they hired someone that only got paid $250,000 a year. Registration dropped 80%, and they lost almost $2 billion in revenue. It's like, okay, well, what you need to understand is that intelligent people cost money. If you want to build a good company, you have to incentivize those people. We're dumb enough to pay basketball players millions of fucking dollars, but to go to pay someone who's actually doing good in the community more money, we lash out at them because we don't understand how business works. So if you don't think people should be getting paid, fuck you. Everybody should get paid the value that they're worth. And sometimes it's exceedingly more valuable than we think to begin with. So it's important that even if it's from donations, to have a CEO that gets paid well, because she could go to a different company that's not helping other people, like maybe a violent video game that's sold directly to children, and nobody's going to give a fuck how much she gets paid. So you guys need to get your heads out of your asses. For this whole donation model is broken. If we don't let the charity world spend a shit ton of money on marketing and advertising, on hiring good CEOs, all you're going to end up with piss poor motherfuckers that don't know how to actually run a business, managing things that could actually do good in the world. You need to get your heads out of your asses. If you think people shouldn't be making money from the work they do, Raw Power, yourself on that one. Anyways, it's Tijo with the Arcane Bear. I want to rant at that one because I actually have a deep sentiment and clause with that. I believe that we shouldn't have fired the girl who was making $1 million. We should have paid her more money, because she did something for that company and for the world that was valuable. Why the fuck are we paying these basketball players money? They don't do anything valuable for people. Just some entertainment slosh? Come on now. Let's be real, ladies and gentlemen. We need to be real with how business models work and why they're effective. If you can incentivize brilliant talent, that's how you do it. You give them something that's valuable to them. And currently, money, Bitcoin, whatever it might be, that's how you create more value for your community. So please pay attention. Otherwise, you're not welcome, because you might as well just go join Bernie Sanders and his socialist movement. And I do not like people like Bernie Sanders or Alicia Cortez. They are like, what do you call it? Ticks and parasites in the system. There is no other point. If you're not profitable from your company, you are a waste of money. And we need to change charities into for-profit models, otherwise they will never succeed. Anyways, obviously you can tell I'm pretty passionate about that sentiment. Yeah, we'll go from there. No, raw power. Nothing, no brand has ever been spoiled from making money from it. So you shut your fucking mouth. You have no idea what you're talking about. And I will not allow people who just don't know what they talk about to say dumb shit like that, because it's degrading to other people that are trying to build a business. Everything in life is a business. If you're investing your time, that's a business. Look, my guitar playing, it doesn't make me a shit ton of money, but I can tell you a bunch of things. I've been paid to play shows. I've been paid to write on albums. It's important that you do that. I get paid to do photo shoots for models all the time too. You're an idiot if you're not taking value from what you're good at. So I really want to drive that one home, because a lot of people don't think that you should make money from what you're good at. No, I think you should make more money from what you're good at, and I think you should make even more money than that if you're doing good things for other people. Anyways, I don't mean to feel offensive to you, raw power, but that was just the dumbest thing I've read all day, and I've only been awake for a few hours. So like, let's not start my days like that. That is not different though. None of this stuff is different. If you're building a business and a brand, you should be getting paid really well, especially if you're providing value to other people. Anyways, that's the way it goes. I'm gonna cut it off at that. That was I feel like I got a little bit of aggressive, but that's a deep sentiment. I've done a lot of study in that particular marketplace, and it's important to understand why we need to be paying intelligent people for what they're good at, instead of firing them, especially in the donation models. You know, it's extremely important. Zoom asks, can we look at Neo? Yeah, I could take a look at Neo. Why not? We'll end with that. I haven't looked at Neo in a long time. It's not in my trading portfolio at all. I don't even have it on my watch list in any way. Let's look at cryptocurrency only. Jesus, what? Chrome, what do you keep doing on my screens here? Okay, let's look at Neo on cryptocurrency. Neo to Bitcoin on Binance. Yeah, let's go to Neo to Bitcoin down near the bottom here. Let's scroll out and look on let's start at the weekly. Ooh, it's a gross chart. Yeah, I wouldn't touch Neo yet. I mean, it's broke below its lowest volume profile. I mean, we could look at it to US dollars. That might make it a little more smooth for you guys, just on a charting perspective. So $9. Oh, and it doesn't have any of the previous data. So we actually need Neo on Bittrex. Does it have Neo on Bittrex to tether? Yeah, there we go. Again, not the most stable of charts here, and even Bittrex, it doesn't have the all data. Anyways, I wouldn't necessarily touch Neo here at all. I wouldn't even look at it because it's not in a range that's useful to me. Let's look at it back at Bitcoin on the daily, see if it looks a little more effective. Yeah, so I wouldn't even really look at Neo. It's below its volume profile. God, what the hell is happening, Chrome? Man, Chrome has never given me so much shit. And I've used Brave before, guys. Look, it's right here. It gives me the same amount of dumb shit. So neither of them do great, apparently. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Neo is it could break its volume profile hold here. Although it's showing most of the support, it's actually around 2200. It's too much, there's potential for too much downside in Bitcoin's current upward momentum for me to even give it any side conjecture. Let's take a look. Raw Power, that doesn't make, okay. So Raw Power and I are having an argument here, and I definitely don't agree with him. He says, once you start making money from your channel, you will start self-censoring and put out content only that people like. That's ridiculous. That's just ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense. First off, I've made money from this channel from day one because Google gives me money, so you're just making shit up. Secondary, if people start doing something different because they make money, that doesn't make any sense either. I'm not self-censoring because of the money. I'm self-censoring because we live in an extremely tyrannical world where you can get kicked off social media for speaking, right? Here we go. Let's take a look. James Wood banned from Twitter as Silicon Valley Zap conservative 2020 influencers, right? It's important to self-censor nowadays because otherwise you're gone. I'm not self-censoring because of the money. Are you kidding me? If you had more money, the chances are you would be less likely to have to self-censor because then you could just build your own platforms. So Raw Power, you're just talking right out of your butt, man. I don't agree with any of the things that you've said about money here whatsoever. So I appreciate it if you try to do a little bit more study into the positive sides of capitalism and why it's actually important to incentivize intelligent people to do good work. Now, Brave and Chrome are both based off chromium, hence this is why you have problems with both. Probability says money only amplifies the person you are. Yeah, I agree with this. It's the tool. It's just it's economic energy for your vehicle. So if you have a great vision and you've got a great business and you don't put any gas in that vehicle, you're not going anywhere. It just doesn't make any sense. Great, Raw Power. You can disagree all you want, but you're wrong. I'm going to just inadvertently say that you're wrong because I don't think you know what you're saying. You haven't done enough study into the other parts of capitalism. If you think that capitalism stubs people's honesty in business, it doesn't make any sense. I don't think you know enough people in the business future. Primitive Future says wake and bake. Do you want to get high? Primitive Future, why would you even ask such a dumb question? No, I'm not high. I'm excited about life. If I was high, you'd notice. I'd be smoking on screen with you. I'd be like, I don't care. I would let you know, but I'm not going to smoke this early in the morning. I have shit to do on Sunday. Go yourself too. I don't understand what's wrong with people. I love smoking weed, but not early in the morning like this. I have things to do. God damn it. Anyways, I'm going to jump offline. Thank you for joining me on the Random Rants. These shows are meant to go nowhere particular, although I will argue with you if I don't agree with you. And if I don't agree with you, you're not going to be able to change my mind. Unless you bring me data that has otherwise. And I've done a lot of research. Like, it's not like, I just sit at home and don't read all day. I'm not doing anything. And look, guys, as soon as I turn the screen off, I just sit in this chair and wait till I don't do anything until the next show is about to go live. No, I do tons of stuff. I do tons of research. You're not going to be able to convince me of something with just a short one-off answer unless there's some serious data behind it. And there's no serious data behind what you're saying, boy. So please. Hodlerberry says you asked 5 times. Dude, you can't get upset if I don't see your question. I don't even see that you asked a question. Come on, get real here. Oh, you see, go scroll up. Let's see. Have you seen the Bittrex manipulation scandal? No, I don't care. Look, what people don't understand is that I don't care about stuff like that. That's already built into the universe as far as I'm concerned. Like, I don't think that the universe, there's nothing that can exist outside of the conscious universe, right? So whatever happens, whether it's a Bittrex manipulation scandal, that was already priced into the movement for me. It's already priced into the future inevitability of things going wrong, that there was going to be some type of manipulation scandal. Who does it? I don't really care. Does it make a difference to me? No, I don't really care. What's beautiful about technical analysis is I'm just trying to chart the underlying basic conscious development of sentiment. It has nothing to do with things that cause those sentiments to change. Doesn't make any difference. Those are likely going to happen all around the board. We're looking at the sentiment as a whole, which has nothing to do with what causes the sentiment, because it was going to happen inevitably, eventually anyways. People are going to try to manipulate. People are going to try to create coercion in systems. That's inevitable. So whether or not Bittrex or Tether did it, I don't freaking care. It's the same story. Does that make sense? Yes. So no, I didn't really look into the Bittrex scandal. I'm not one of those guys like, oh, look at Supple Man just shill coins. I don't fucking care what other people do. Let them do their goddamn thing, you know? This is one of the things that's important to the Arcane Bear, is that we're supportive of other individuals. So if you have a good argument and you can change my mind, which is often possible, with coherent evidence and a well thought out argument and points of conjecture that basically debate what it is that I'm saying, well then great, you can change my mind. I actually love to learn more. But if I've studied something for a long time, you're not going to be able to convince me by saying, oh, you're wrong. It's like, yeah, great argument. You're wrong too. So Hodler, I just don't, I don't think it makes any difference. I mean, look, okay, Raw Power, I'm glad that you love the channel, and it will continue to grow and develop. We're going to look at a few different growths of like what the channel can do over the next few months. I'm actually planning we were planning a visit to an orphanage in June here with a few other content creators from Costa Rica. So over the last few years of living here, I've made a bunch of friends that do travel blogging, or they take amazing photos and they do really good video stuff. So we're looking at doing working with a few of the nonprofit companies that exist here. Again, helping orphanages. There's one that does a bunch. They have like over 1,300 dogs that they keep track of. Beach cleanups with friends. We're looking at maybe doing a partnership with Toyota for those videos too. So we're just building and building. The channel here has nothing that's the same. I don't even know what it is I'm doing. I just wanted to start ranting because when Bitcoin was $400, I was screaming and nobody was listening. And at least this way, there's a few people, like there's the core group of people that know that this channel is about nothing particular. And maybe nothing is like our niche. Nothing is our niche. We fit in perfectly. So we grow from there. Primitive Furniture says, are you a millionaire? That's yeah, I can answer that question by saying yeah, but in what response is the million accessible? Like I said, I'm particularly interested in assets that I don't touch. Most of my wealth is illiquid because I don't want it to stay, I don't want it to move. I want it to remain in my asset portfolio. What people don't understand about, a millionaire is it doesn't even matter. You still have another, 50 years ahead of you to try to make and lose business. Being a millionaire doesn't make any difference whatsoever. Most people that might make $1 million that didn't know how to manage it are going to lose it just as quickly as they found it, because it's not about do you have $1 million, it's about do you have the assets to continue to grow and build your businesses. Like I've made this sentiment before, and as the channel grows, if we ever get to, as I hope we get to a bigger place here, is that we can go out and do a few experiments where we try, where I'm like, okay, I'm going to, we're gonna try to put me in a position where I have none of my backup businesses as a part of my current portfolio, and I'm gonna have to try to make $100,000 a year business with maybe $5 in my pocket, and I feel quite confident that I could do that because of the skill set that I have. So who cares about how much money you have? If you're a dope schmuck and you have $1 million, you're going to lose it. What's more important is how valuable are your personal assets. I would way rather hang out with someone that has no money, that has value of character, and that has value of personality, of intelligence, of compassion, and conscientious, because they are way richer. So why would you even give a shit how much money someone has in their portfolio? It makes no difference. I don't give a fuck how much money people have. I care how wealthy they are as individuals, and they are often way more wealthy than the people that have a shit ton of money in their bank accounts, because they haven't learned how to appreciate anything at all. So that's kind of one of those weird sentiments where who gives a fuck how much money you have? If you're a rich and compassionate individual, you are probably way more wealthy and rich than someone that has a bunch of money. So who cares? It's you're better off in life anyways. And David, I agree with you here. The more money you have, the more stressful and difficult it will become to maintain it. So here we go. I mean, just again, the random rants with Tijo. We don't know where this channel goes. It kind of just jumps all over the place. That's the point here. I'm not trying. This was meant to be a creative outlet for me. And it still is. That's why we do music videos every now and then. That's why we do the things like go to visit orphanages. That's why we do things like make vlogs and just randomly talk, is because this is a creative outlet for me. I'm a creative individual, and that's what I choose to do with my time. The only even with the charting, the reason I love doing this stuff is because it's a part. It connects to some of the things that I love doing, which is math and science and creativity, of trying to understand abstract things like emotion or whatever. So it's just and with that, this is a creative outlet for me. So thank you guys for being very supportive. I know it's all over the place, and I know because of that, we will always be a fairly niche community, but please know that I'm deeply, deeply grateful for all your guys' support in this wild ride that we call Arcane Bear. It means a great deal to me. I try to do the best that I can to provide content and interesting ideas to you. So I appreciate all the support and all your criticisms. I appreciate you allowing me to argue with you. And often that I'm wrong too. So thank you guys all for joining us. I'll leave it at that. The two with the Arcane Bear. You guys are absolutely fantastic. I'll leave it off with a little bit more of this. Yeah, I'm actually recording a song right now. That's the song that I'm recording, so hopefully we can have it online over the next few days.